The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Hi everyone. Today on Aging Horizons we have a great guest, Victoria Green from the Crime Control Bureau. She's a grant coordinator for the Elder Justice Project. Very, very important project, especially in a rural state like Montana where we know exploitation and abuse happens and we know we need to get help and information out there. We have a lot for you, so stay tuned.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
This is Bill. He just received his new Medicare card and is following some simple rules to protect himself from fraud. He knows to never give out his Medicare, Social Security, or bank number over the phone. And this is Nancy. She knows that to detect any problems, she always reads her Medicare Summary Notice or Medicare Advantage EOB to make sure the billing is correct. Both Bill and Nancy know that anything suspicious can be reported to Montana SMP at 1-800-551-3191.
45 years, 2 packs a day. It's like $80,000. I thought I was just hurting myself until I fell asleep in a chair with a cigarette. The whole house went up. I lost it all. I knew smoking was expensive, but I never thought it would cost me everything.
The human heart. Even at its strongest, it's a fragile muscle. Chest and arm pain, shortness of breath, are signs of a heart under attack. But 3 numbers can save a life. Dial 911 at the first sign of a heart attack. Quick response from medical experts can save your life.
I was 45 and it happened to me, a heart attack.
Dialing 911 saved Ryan's life. Now he's here and he's healthy.
This message sponsored by Mission Lifeline Montana.
Hello everyone and welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Kimmy Everman, and we have a great show today. We always have a great show, but this is really special. We have someone with us today from the Crime Control Bureau who's been working on a wonderful elder justice project. And with us is Victoria Green. Victoria, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Sure, so glad to have you. As I said, now you're gonna be able to describe this project much better than I can. So why don't you tell us a bit about what you do as the grant coordinator for the Elder Justice Project?
Yes, happy to. So with our project, we focus on providing specialized trainings for the community as well as for law enforcement and direct service personnel. And another large portion of this past training is that we're also going to have funding available to provide direct services. And so with that, we'll be able to have an abuse and late life advocate specialist housed, and we'll also be able to have that person housed at different domestic violence centers so that they can go into the centers and educate the organizations and also encourage and enhance some of the practices there so that everything is age inclusive.
That sounds great, and we really need that. I think especially in the more ranchy, rural parts of our state, that kind of a resource or advocate is so important.
Yes, it is. And typically what happens is a lot of people, when they initially think about domestic violence centers or sexual violence centers, they think a younger person is someone who's typically using those services, which is the case. However, and mostly, however, we also do have people of all ages who need assistance. Unfortunately, domestic violence can occur across the lifespan.
Maybe let's take a step back, Victoria, and just talk about what do we mean by domestic violence? And I also want to say you're so correct about ages, and that makes it all the more confusing for an older person to leave that abuser. Can you talk a little bit about domestic violence in itself and what that's about?
Yes, I can. So abuse in late life can come in a variety of forms. And when it comes to domestic violence, it can range anywhere from physical harm, sexual harm, emotional and mental harm, or financial harm and neglect.
And that, I worry about older adults because it's a much more complicated situation to remove yourself from than when you're younger, correct? Or
yes,
can be.
Yes, it can be a difficult situation to remove yourself when you're older. There are some situations where someone may be in a marriage for 45 years, and throughout their marriage, that relationship may have been dangerous and harmful. However, something happens at the 45-year marker, and someone decides, I'm going to remove myself from this dangerous situation. But there are also other situations where it can unfortunately be a close family member, such as a caregiver, or your grandchild or adult child, who is the one causing harm. In fact, 90% of the time with abuse in late life, it is the family member or close tie.
And you also gave me some information about global numbers, and maybe we could talk about Montana numbers as well, but globally, 1 in 6 people over 60 are experiencing this kind of abuse?
Yes. Unfortunately, this has been recognized as an epidemic globally by the World Health Organization. And they have dedicated an entire page to discuss the factors and indicators about abuse in late life and how to find safety. And globally, 1 in 6 individuals age 60 and over experience some sort of harm within the last year of with their last data numbers of 2019. And with that number, we have to take it with a grain of salt because oftentimes this is an underreported occurrence. Oftentimes someone doesn't want to make a report and get their grandchild in trouble or removed from the home. And there are also situations where the individual wants the harm to stop, but doesn't want to have that individual removed. And so that's where we have a lot of hiccups in trying to make sure we can secure a safe environment.
Because I think, we've had guests on in the past who have discussed this, and I find it fascinating because it is so much more complicated and unique and difficult at an older age to try to leave that kind of a situation. And I guess it's just not as easy as getting in your car and driving away, is it?
It's not. It's not that easy. Oftentimes there are financial elements tied into it and emotional and mental elements tied into it where it's a lot easier said than done. And so that's why it's so important to have this project to try to make sure we can build community support and some support of those around individuals in harm so that they feel safe to seek help in the community and find refuge while they change their life and find safety.
Absolutely. Victoria, we're quickly coming to an end of our first segment. This was great information. Folks, it is complicated. It's a complicated issue, but nobody should have to be abused. Domestic violence is not just a family issue, it is a community issue. And this project is, as Victoria said, is looking to find ways to support folks in their communities and help empower them to live safer, happier, healthier lives. We want to make sure that you know all of this. We're not saying shame on you or you need to leave. We just want you to have the information. And we have a whole lot more to talk about, so please don't go anywhere. We want to make sure you know everything you need to know about this.
I
think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
Elder abuse is a growing problem, and it's happening right here in our Montana communities. At least 1 in 10 older adults are victims of physical or emotional abuse, financial exploitation, or neglect. To get help or report elder abuse, call your local area agency on aging or Adult Protective Services at 1-844-277-9300.
I was the last guy you'd expect to get diabetes. I was a competitive runner and I always took care of myself. So when I was diagnosed, it kind of threw me. But it's really encouraging to know I'm not alone with it. There are a lot of other people going through the same things as I am. It takes some effort. You have to keep after it. Exercise, meds, and diet are the key. But there are a lot of folks who want me to succeed. Diabetes is not the end of the world. With effort and attitude, you can have a normal life.
Flight 109, is that Evel Knievel on the runway?
Whoa, Daredevil. You need a Montana Real ID to fly. Go to mtrealid.gov to make an appointment.
Looks easier than jumping a canyon.
Smile. I see you changed your name from Robert to Evil. Did you bring your name change documentation?
I'm not trying to pull a stunt. Got the paperwork right there.
Go to mtrealid.gov.
Now I can fly. It's that easy.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're here with Victoria Green today talking about a really important project going on in Montana right now, and that's the Elder Justice Project. Victoria, glad to have you with us. Now, I know we're almost the end of June here, but June has been Elder Abuse Awareness Month, hasn't it? And one of the things that you pointed out to me about that is the need to combat ageism. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. So with the World Health Organization, they help really push the agenda of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day globally, and that is on June 15th. And I know that day has passed, but we can always keep it in mind for the future. And the entire month of June is dedicated towards elder justice and being aware that, unfortunately, elder abuse is something that happens behind closed doors. And so you may encounter someone who is experiencing harm, and you may not know what indicators to look for. And so with that, I would like to explain what some of those potential indicators could be.
Sure, why don't you do that?
Yes. And so when it comes to trying to identify if someone may potentially be experiencing harm, it can vary by individual. And this is by no means a concrete method of trying to identify something, but through the National Clearinghouse of Abuse in Late Life, NCAL.us, they have a list about all the red flags to look for, as well as a nice layout of what to do in terms of safety planning. If someone realizes they're in a harmful situation and they want to find safety, there's a nice checklist of kind of like what basic things to grab on your way out the door and to set aside for later.
Mm-hmm. Should they have a bag packed?
So it kind of varies, but with our former abuse and late life advocate, she did encourage people to pack bags and to have a go suitcase, something that was already ready and hidden away. So then when you find the time is right, you can grab those essential items that involve like your passport, medical cards, your doctor's numbers and emergency numbers, cell phone, and grab that and then leave the vicinity.
Yeah, I think I've always thought that was very smart, just in case to have it, and to and also as you were talking about your plan, just in case.
Yes.
Yeah. So some of those indicators of abuse in later life, what are we talking about?
Yes, indicators can vary. And so with that, some of it can be if you have a neighbor or a friend or someone you know, and you have to notice that they have an increased amount of bruises, then with unexplained explanations, or they may begin to use phrases to indicate that they feel like they're walking on eggshells around a certain individual who may be a caregiver or someone within their household. If that person begins to miss appointments unexpectedly, even when typically it's an individual who always shows up on time, and they begin to miss things, make cancellations, and come up with excuses on why they can't appear. So a lot of it involves the isolation piece. Another portion can involve if they begin to use phrases like they feel suicidal or they feel trapped within their household. Typically, an abuser will try to really focus on that isolation. And in our state of Montana, because we are in a rural area, it's very easy to do that, unfortunately, with our lack of public transportation and lack of cellular service in certain areas.
So, and when you say isolation, what do you mean by that?
By that, I mean the removal of someone's phone, preventing them from going out to do activities they once enjoyed, such as if someone is an avid churchgoer, if their abuser stops them from going to church and begins to tell them they can't see friends or they cannot see like doctors alone. That is a huge indicator.
Yeah, and you know, you want to be watching for those signs because that person may not feel that they can even speak up at that point, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yes, and sometimes it's a fear of speaking up because they may not want that person the person who's causing the harm and causing the isolation to experience consequences or to leave the household. And in some situations, the person causing the harm may be the caregiver, and so they may be someone that you're relying on.
Wow, what a conflicting, confusing, terrible position to be put in. So who do you contact? Say I have a neighbor that is like you've described. Who do I contact?
I would recommend contacting Adult Protective Services. They have a wonderful website, APS. And you can also contact your local domestic violence shelter as well.
And they can help calm down the situation, I would assume, at least in the moment, give you some support right away, and then start working with you to figure out next steps.
Oh, when you contact APS, they have a different process than it would be if you contacted a local domestic violence shelter.
Okay.
And so if you contact a local domestic violence shelter, they'll provide 24-hour free confidential services where they'll be able to talk with you to understand what you're experiencing and really help you lay out a plan to clear your thoughts to clarify what you should do next.
Super, and I think that's so important because, again, confusing, conflicting time. Folks, it's not just as easy as getting in your car and taking off. We are here to give you the information you need to help you decide whether or not you're in a situation that is not safe and that you need to remove yourself from. We're going to give you lots more information, lots more resources, and Victoria will be back to tell us about her projects. So stay with us.
Respite. It's okay to need it. It's okay to want it. Will you provide it?
The hard part about having outside help is that there's not a lot of people out there who can do that kind of work. We've been very fortunate that our Bonnie has been with us for 7 years. I don't know what I'd do without her. I need her in our lives. She's our second mother. And I can't help but think of her that way.
To find out how to change lives, including your own, call 800-224-6034 or visit respite.mt.gov.
Montana is getting back to life after COVID-19. The COVID vaccine is the best way to keep us on track. The vaccine's been rigorously tested. It's proven to be safe and effective. And Montana doctors and nurses stand behind the vaccine because it works and it will save lives. The COVID-19 vaccine is the best way to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your community. Sign up today to get your free COVID-19 vaccine. Visit covidvaccine.mt.gov.
I have so many questions about power of attorney.
Well, some powers of attorney are for finances and others are for healthcare decisions.
A power of attorney designates an agent who would make decisions on your behalf.
While making a power of attorney, you have the ability to control your agent's power.
You also have the ability to decide when that POA would take effect.
Wait, am I giving away all my rights?
Power of attorney isn't a license to make any decision for you, just those that you've specified.
Your agent should be somebody that's working in your best interest, but it should also be somebody that you would trust.
What if they try to abuse their power?
Protective measures like third-party accounting, secondary signatures, defined spending and gifting limits can help protect against financial exploitation. An agent's powers can always be limited by a customized power of attorney, and they can be revoked by you or the court if the power of attorney is abused.
So carefully drafted estate planning documents can help ensure that your finances are monitored, but not abused.
If you or someone you know is being exploited, please report to Aging Services Bureau at 844-277-9300 or the Legal Service Developer at 1-800-332-2272. This message sponsored by the DPHHS Aging Service Bureau.
Hi folks, welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're here talking about the Elder Justice Project with Victoria Green. Victoria, welcome back. Learned so much today. And we have a whole nother segment to talk about a new advocate that you're thinking may be coming around soon. Abuse Late in Life Advocate, fall of 2021. I'm stoked. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, I'm so happy to. So we've been awarded extra grant funding. Actually, they were so impressed with the first advocate that we had on board that now we'll be able to have 2 abuse and late life advocates housed at local domestic violence shelters. The first advocate will be at the Friendship Center in Helena, Montana, and our second advocate will be at YWCA Missoula. And we hope to have everyone on board and trained by fall of 2021. And these advocates will provide specialized services to clients that come in age 50 and over.
I just think that, you know, the more I learn about domestic violence in later life, the more important it seems to me that there's an advocate for just that age group of people.
Yes, and it's extremely important. There are different factors someone may not consider compared to serving someone who comes in who's 20 compared to serving someone who's 55.
Right. Exactly.
And there are factors such as making sure that you monitor someone's blood pressure. As an example, a client came in who was like set in her 70s, and it became a concern that there was no blood pressure machine within the facility. And so they had to get a blood pressure machine to monitor the individual's blood pressure because the person left their medication with their abuser when they fled. And so there are just different factors like that that we may not be aware of. There are also generational differences about how the topic of harm is approached.
Yeah, again, you bang on. I mean, I just think that this is such an important arena to focus on for folks with domestic violence issues in their later life. Could we talk again about those indicators? Because I think that's pretty important.
Yes, we can. So to get in more depth with the indicators, when it comes to physical things, it can involve such things such as someone hitting you, punching you, pinching you, or choking you, and other things such as restraints. And when it comes to the psychological or mental aspect, that can involve things such as yelling, name calling, degrading and public humiliating someone. And a lot of that involves targeting the vulnerabilities. So that can mean someone may need a walker to get around. So an abuser may remove that walker so that the individual is stuck wherever they are and they can't leave and they cannot access the phone or medication until they comply with the person's desires. And another factor is the use of family members. It could be a scenario where an adult child may say, you can't see your grandchildren unless you provide X amount of dollars to me by this day.
What's that picture like in Montana, Victoria? Do we just have tons of this going on?
Unfortunately, it's underreported. APS has an increase in calls every year. Their call numbers go up. And when it comes to fully tracking it, it also can be difficult because usually when someone will seek help, they'll do so through a domestic violence shelter, such as a Friendship Center or YWCA Missoula. And so that's a different stream of tracking where it may not necessarily involve law enforcement or reporting.
So Victoria,
isolation is a huge piece. And,
Well, I was just going to say, how can if I have a friend or a neighbor, how can I support them in this journey? Who do I contact, or what would I do if I wanted to help support them?
If you suspect or know someone who is experiencing harm, or they come to you, the first thing you can do is start by believing. To express that you are experiencing harm and that you're in danger is a very tough step, and it's hard to do, to seek help. And then once, it's important to, as a friend, as a neighbor, community member, to listen. When someone says something, you should believe them and help them immediately. And really try to ensure their safety, because aging is natural and abuse is not. And with our advocate from our previous grant session, our advocate was in place for 2.5 years, and she served over 120 clients just within a 3-county area.
So
and
that tells you that there's a lot of it going on. As you say, it's underreported. We'd love to know that people were served, but that's a high number in 3 counties,
yes,
isn't it?
It is a high number. And then when you compare it to law enforcement numbers of those who reported crimes against them that involved police or anything, the numbers for that age group is extremely low. So the numbers aren't reflecting the true amount of abuse that goes on. And then there are also so many others who don't have the opportunity to seek help.
And they may be too afraid, too ashamed, too embarrassed, to whatever, to ever, or maybe, as you also said, there are generational issues here. They may be of a generation where you just put up and shut up, right?
Yes, unfortunately.
Well, Victoria, it's been such a pleasure having you with us today. We've learned so much. We're going to put your number and your website up and everything on the screen again. Thanks for all you're doing out there to support the folks that are dealing with this difficult challenge.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for sharing this message.
Sure thing. Folks, again, it's not a shameful thing. It's not a judgment thing. Reach out. If you need help or just information, reach out. We want to be there for you. For Aging Horizons, I'm Kimmy Everman.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.